Okay, so those are some of the clues. Now I'm going to go into sort of a subset of clues or cues, and these have to do with a very small minority of people who are likely INTPs, whether they know it or not. So these, again, I really have to preface that because here comes some behaviors that a lot of people would agree are not desirable, and some people might feel defensive about them. But so I do not mean to imply that any but a small minority of people out there who display these behaviors, or that these do not represent INTPs as a group at all. But so, are you someone who has become, again, probably very knowledgeable about all the theoretical aspects of the MBTI and the cognitive functions? And you feel that through a great process of your steel trap mind, your extremely high intelligence, your terrific facility with logic, your unbelievable analytical skills and ability, your very cool appraisal of the facts, so on. So your skepticism, so on and so on. All these wonderful things in this golden Swiss Army knife that is your mind. But in the absence of anyone else ever saying to you, ever unprompted volunteering to you, the opinion that you have any particular insight into other people, that you are particularly psychologically astute, that you really have a knack for reading people correctly and quickly and accurately and deeply understanding what their motivations are, which have to do with feelings. Motivation is always tied to feeling. Despite the fact, are you someone who has not really had any, not had any or had very, very little feedback spontaneously proffered from anyone in the exterior, other than you, comment that you have any sort of talent for reading people very, very well. And yet, despite that fact, you feel utterly convinced that you know better than the vast majority of people out there what their real types are. Number one. Number two, in addition to this, do you feel a very strong compulsion to go out there on the internet and to benevolently share of the truths you've discovered with your big brains, and reveal the truth to everyone and make pronouncements to other people about what their real types are? Whether they like it or not, you're going to go and you're going to let them have it. You're going to let them know what the truth is because you respect the truth and you know what the truth is, and you are going to, you're going to get it out there. Third part, are you someone who's like at least 10 times more likely to begin a post to another, particularly as concerns, a typing matter, is she or isn't she typing matter, with the statement, you are wrong, versus say something like, hello, or you've got some good points, but you're just the main thrust of your message is like, you are wrong, and here's how you are wrong. And furthermore, when you go around doing that, you don't know, you really are at a loss as to why everyone is so touchy and like what everybody's problem is, and why the internet seems to be, these people are not grateful for this wonderful truth you're bestowing upon them. And you just don't know why they're being so touchy or being such crybabies or whiners about what is so obviously the truth about what their type is. Or you do know exactly why everyone is giving you all this shit for going around with your truths, but and benevolently delivering them unto the world, but bringing light to all those deceived about their own type. Why they're all mad and they're all pissed at you, but you just don't give the tiniest shit about it. Okay, so again, if you can identify with several of these things that I've mentioned, I would suggest that and you still don't know what your own type is, I would really suggest that you take a really good solid look at INTP. And this is because let us turn to what are the characteristics associated with the dominant function in INTP and also the inferior function. The dominant function is introverted thinking. And introverted thinking is really, really famous for being a very extremely internalized kind of inductive reasoning process is sort of its preferred MO, for figuring things out. It tends to be very, very complex. It is obsessed with precision and accuracy. What tends to go with TI and any prominence in someone's cognitive stack is somebody who is very uncommonly skeptical. And INTPs are known to be of all 16 types, which is really saying something when you compare them to the argumentation skills and the investigative skills, mental investigative skills of the other NTs. They are the most ruthlessly logical. That is their reputation. And nobody has the stamina to go, nor the interest to go nearly as far as an INTP that's hot on the trail of the solution to a logically based problem. They are unbelievable in this. This is their element. This is their forte. This is their passion. This is where they live mentally. This is what they tend to do best if, other circumstantial factors permitting full development of their cognitive functions. Boy, oh boy, these people can really fool you because, with the other things going on in the nexus of their type, they can be most of the time the most easygoing seeming people, and they really are in so many matters, in 1,000 day-to-day matters. These people are so easy to get along with. So much of the time, and so flexible, and so yeah, whatever, and we can do it this way, we can do it that way. I don't care what time it happens, just really, really, really easygoing, really hands off. Don't like to tell it. They really don't. They have zero interest in bossing other people around. They don't care about being in charge. Their most cherished activity is to be left alone to as thoroughly as they want to, which is a level of thoroughness that the vast majority of people on earth cannot even begin to imagine, to pursue to the nth degree, to the terminus, whatever logically based idea or problem that has caught their interest and that they've begun to work their minds upon. Generally, if they picked something that interests them to figure out, they will work tirelessly. They might even they might not even tell people they're doing this, but they might be working on some kind of a problem. They might be cogitating on a problem for years. And their sole purpose, the main purpose, the main payoff for them at the end of all of that is going to be that they figured it out. Whether they tell people about it or whether they put it into action is going to be very secondary in concern. If they're actually INTPs, in most cases, the working it out and seeking the truth is a reward, and finding the truth is, according to their incredibly rigorous processes for doing so, that is a thing in itself. That is its own reward. And they are hard as bloody nails. It really is true. If you've ever worked on a project with one of these really easygoing, totally easygoing, messy people, or just yeah, whatever, that's fine. And then one day, if you work with them long enough on a project, there's going to come a day when a collaborator has introduced a glitch to the system of this thing that they're working on. And holy shit, are you going to be in for a surprise? Because at that point, you will see a level of determination and fierceness, a quiet fierceness, and a pit bull they will not be able to let it go. They will not. I've seen INTPs who would be willing to be fired. They don't care if everybody in the entire organization hates them for holding up a project or whatever. If their name is going to go on such and such a project, and that project contains an error, which is something that the INTP has spent a lot, is very invested in determining as an error. They will be the most, there will be such bulldogs about ensuring that error is resolved. Or it's either like that error goes or I go. That's an attitude that will be very typical of INTPs. So they are in search of the truth, and that is in all caps, the truth. And they will spare no effort whatsoever in arriving at that. And they are extremely independent in how they go about it. They're also using this inductive reasoning process that is very, very, very internal, and this sort of true-false sort of processing is what they're going to be doing. And they are going to be so skeptical, typically, of anything that takes their interest that they're kind of testing and trying to figure out. They will be skeptical far beyond even what the INTJ will be, like way beyond in many cases what the INTJ will long ago have been like good enough, that's fine, and we'll move on to something else. The INTP will still be working on it. And to the point where they even will ignore empiricism at some point. They will ignore empirical proof about something because that's how dedicated they are to their own process. That's how independent they are in working this out. So perhaps you're starting to see how it could be the case that some of these people that INTPs might be some of the people most likely to be at a stalemate, to just be dead in the water when it comes to typing themselves, because their skepticism is so intense and it is so persistent that they will not settle for anything until they are absolutely sure that it is that is the truth. So it's a tough road. It's a tough road for these guys when they're figuring stuff out. So very internal, so very complex, their thought process. And so it would make sense to me then with the dominant TI that these people are going to be very frustrated and very apt to get hung up on to a remarkable degree and remarkably often compared to a lot of other types by all of the nuances and the sort of matters of emphasis for consideration in typing within the MBTI. I think, predictably that's going to give them a lot of trouble. It's going to be troublesome for them because they will not be able to let it go. They will not be, of all the types, they will be the least likely to be able to at all quickly ever to say, yep, sounds about, like they're the last people to be like, yep, sounds about right, and then just move on. Like that is not their thing. That is not their thing. So, yeah. Now, the other thing that I think can be in their cognitive stack makeup that can be contributing to them being some of the worst, naturally, I got to really qualify this. They can type as well, if not better, than a whole lot of other people. But there's a big but about that. There are some qualifiers to that, and I'll get to that in a minute. But another thing that can really impede and really hobble and get in the way of an INTP person self-typing properly is the inferior feeling, or typing others too, for that matter, if they're doing it in an unassisted freestyle manner, is their inferior extroverted feeling function. Now, I'm not going to get into the characteristics of that function so much because I don't think it's nearly as pertinent to what this segment is concerned with, but let's state a bit of the obvious. If your feeling function is in the inferior position, it is the 3-year-old in the car seat spilling apple juice all over the car in the back, in that very well-known analogy about what the wattages are and sort of relative impacts of the cognitive functions in one's cognitive function stack. Now, mind you, this is this 3-year-old in the inferior position, this cognitive function, it being an INTP's inferior function, it's probably a very precocious 3-year-old. It's probably a 3-year-old that is very soon going to be skipping kindergarten and can already name, what the capital of Colombia is and point it out on a globe for you. However, it's still 3 years old, okay? So I don't think this is so crazy to suppose that the vast majority of INTPs, unless they are very highly trained and very, very practiced in real world situations over long periods of time with typing people and figuring out people's emotions, and which are intrinsically tied to their motivations, which are intrinsically tied to their behavioralisms and so on, what can be observable from the outside, that which is so, pertinent to typing people correctly, this is not going to be a strength for them at all. In most cases. Now, there are exceptions. For example, my dad, he's an INTP. He is a clinical psychologist. He's extremely qualified in his niche area, in his field, and he has over 40 years of clinical experience. So this is someone who has spent, 8 hours a day for years and 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 years, and he's been applying all of his INTP typical cognitive talents and proclivities to his one of them being with the INTP a really strong drive for mastery. Okay, so these people want to get it right, and they will spare no effort in getting it right. So, I would go to my dad about, I find that his advice can be quite good as concerns dealing with other people sometimes. And when I need some sort of like psychological advice for people, he can be very good at that, at providing that. However, to put it, make my main point, but outside of him, pretty much in every case in my extensive social experience with NT people, in most cases when an NT person has ever said to me, and whatever, look up what ENFP is supposed to be good at, but has said to me, you know what, Robin, I've really figured out what's going on with this person. I really know, I think I've really gotten to the bottom of what their problem is. In almost every case that an NT in my life has said that, I have been like quietly like, you're totally fucking off. You have no idea. Like, I totally don't agree. I think they're way off. I think, though, that a lot of the NTs and the INTs in particular, because the INTs are so used to being the smartest people in the room, most rooms that they're in, unless those rooms are full of unless it's like the control room at NASA or whatever, unless it's a room full of other NTs and a preponderance of INTs, they are used to being right a lot of the time. A lot of the time. So I think they can be really, it's understandable that they they're used to being right. They're used to have arriving at the finish line a lot earlier than most other people when it comes to figuring shit out. And I think that that's part of this hubris that I see sometimes on the part of a lot of these INT trolls running around out there who despite the fact no one else has ever told them in their lives, I don't think, that they're particularly astute at figuring people out. But they have this confidence, this internal confidence that, well, because they're the chess masters or whatever, surely all that intelligence and then all this theoretical knowledge, which in many cases they really have very responsibly accrued, they think that they can go around typing people and they're going to be really good at it. But what those people maybe are failing to understand is that typing people means being able to read people. Being able to read people means you have to spend 1 million hours being extremely interested. If you're not highly trained, I should say that. If you're not highly trained, highly assisted with tools and checklists and procedures to sort of help you in the typing, if you do have those things, then perhaps you're going to be as good a typer as the best, among the best. However, if you're doing freestyle, natural, unassisted, totally untrained, independent typing of people in the MBTI, and you're an INT, predictably you are going to suck. You're going to suck at this compared to a great many people. And it doesn't matter what your theoretical knowledge is, because you don't, again, I can't remember, unlike, say, a lot of the NF types or whatever, and most INTs have not been spending millions of hours in their lives just like really devoting themselves to like, wow, what is going on inside other people? How are they feeling, and how did that happen, and what were the processes by which that happened? It's not their interest, and it's not where they've practiced, and it's not their forte. And that's a huge part of typing, is understanding motivation and really knowing how people behave and why they do what they do and so on. And it's like the INTs naturally and unassisted. It's, again, I'm sure there's some exceptions, but come on, guys. It's like, it's just like you wouldn't expect somebody with the feeling function dominant who hasn't been trained and practiced and blah, 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 to beat all the INTs at logical pursuits, like just handily, like it's just as ridiculous. If you think of it that way. So I think that's why those are some of the reasons related to the cognitive functions of INTP, why INTP might have an especially hard time with the self-typing process and arriving at the correct type for themselves, at least with any ease and without any sort of assistance, instrumental, and also in terms of sort of the counseling, guidance, input, opinions of others. Now,